We start off with all the easiest ones, which is just how you got into this.
Sure, absolutely. So this being probably a good way to define that is how can we as a family and as a community through volunteers and hired help grow food and support soil and ecological health in a way that is long-term being 7 generations, which definitely includes all the worst projections of the climate crisis. So how did I get into that? Well, it really started at the Climate Stress Lab in the USDA. Way back in 2000. It was pretty much defunded and dissolved within a couple years after I joined. Why? I know we wonder all the time, but it was a hard hit at age 21 as to what's happening out there. And I was fully aware of environmental degradation from a very young age and conscientious about it, as well as social injustice. So combining all of those, I thought, how can I take care of my own self without causing damage? How can I just basics? So it came down to food, water, shelter, and looking at maybe. Then it started kind of, can I get a little more lofty in my goals and think I'm not just going to survive, but I'm going to actually maybe make some impact in terms of whether it's building an Earthship and capitalizing upon the greatest waste product on the planet, used automobile tires, or growing in a way such that again I'm reclaiming. We are reclaiming land that has been abused and through whatever practices or by neglect, right? And then there was a learning process involved, and that pretty much came down to what did our ancestors do? So indigenous plant and technical knowledge is where I sourced from, then seeing what people are doing now that I respected and had the meta view of what that shared a meta view with me. And then it was about getting land. And then it was pretty much implemented from there.
And you said you're in West Virginia, but then moved to here. Were you from here originally?
Yeah. Well, I'm from south of Springfield, and Jesse's from Leesburg. And we met up in Arlington. And before we were married, we said, we want land. And we found a West Virginia property. And then we realized, wait, we are nowhere even close to being digital nomads. And we do not want to enter the mine force or the chicken processing. We had no income up there. So we paid off the land, and we did some major projects that kind of set the stage for what we call ourselves the sacrificial generation of getting as off-grid as we can, buying land, getting skills, and then whoever takes over next, it will kind of be hopefully more connected and from an early time. But we had our jobs here, and so when we found this property, an old derelict, I call it the derelict homestead, the house required about 5 years worth of renovation, us and contractors. It was advertised originally as a tear down, and then they re-advertised it as a fixer-upper, which drew us in. But it was just seeing the land. I was driving out the driveway just myself after seeing the land and saying, how do I refinance my home to buy this? We just knew. Wow. So,
Cool.
That was our early stories.
What you grow here, we've gotten a good taste of it. But can you just paint the picture for our notes here too?
Absolutely. So you'll find growing everything that you probably find in a traditional farmer's market, right? But on top of that, because we're growing 99% of our produce for the Farm to Food Bank program, which those recipients are mainly ethnic populations, our main crops are things like a lot of different Asian greens, Malabar spinach, bottle gourds, winter melons, bitter melons. So things that you amaranth greens, because we realized amaranth greens is the actual dialect name of it is the garden plant. So this is a very old, deeply seated in their food culture of Indians.
99% Farm to Food Bank, and then 1%
barter. For labor.
Oh, sweet.
And of course us.
Yeah. Awesome.
And so it's like all produce.
Yeah, eggs are, again, barter, and like our woman gave us two of her nukes, honeybee nukes.
Oh,
and so
cool.
we are on a weekly, hey, this is your weekly CSA bag with just her as the barter for that.
Cool.
All volunteers that come are welcome to take anything home that they will eat with their families.
Very cool.
And then of course the eggs are always in the high demand, so
I have questions about like the volunteers
Sure.
and kind of like education in
Go
this
for it.
space. How much of that like would you say is like part of your business / revenue /
Yeah.
mission?
So if you take all the manpower hours, yes, and you subtract that from our expenses, right? It's a huge amount of income coming out of saving that what I would normally pay. The education, now that's time that I take,
Right.
and so that's coming out of me. But if I can't do the labor anymore, and that's what I have to offer,
Right.
that's what like I'm putting into the pot. And there is once again the mission of our farm is to be able to have longevity in our practices. And how can you have longevity if you're not teaching, right? So I can probably, at least 10 to 20 people that have come through here over the years have let me know that they have, while they're here or later, that they have bought land and they're starting to grow their own food now.
Very cool.
Yeah. So hopefully it's working in terms of spreading, a different idea of how we can survive.
That's beautiful. So the ag tourism, that's not really like ag tourism, but like the volunteer, that's like a big chunk of your labor, you would say.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the majority,
Okay.
without a doubt.
And you have the staff you have, do you just have one? Like,
One employee, 25 hours a week. Now, I did want to mention the volunteers. Sometimes, if they are residing here on the farm, there's $100. There's that free lodging, and then there's $100 weekly like food allowance.
Mm.
So it's very minimal, but it is again a part of the plan. But yeah, we're thinking now we can probably have someone here year round for 25 hours a week,
Wow.
someone year round because of the grants.
Cool.
That allow us to, and so our employee won't be focusing entirely on the grants, but when it comes up that we are doing a project within the scope of the grant, they're on that, and our volunteers are on that. But then at the same time, they can move off and we can keep up the maintenance of the commercial ag farm.
Cool.
you're mentioning the grants a lot. Is that like where most of the financing of your farm comes from? Or does it mostly pay for itself? Do you have...
So the grants, I would say 50% of the time cover the expenses of whatever the purpose of the grant is.
Okay.
Another 50% we are paying out of pocket. But sometimes it's twofold. Like, for example, in the barn, we were putting in a floor, but that floor is not just going to be used for the cold rooms. That floor is going to be used for other areas, processing and education. So we're thinking that the grants, they're all mainly infrastructure, right? They allow us to move to the next level of involvement toward our progress toward completing our mission, achieving our mission, our vision. And so they're very time intensive, and as you can see, like cost extends. Like one point, it was like we are so over budget, and then a bunch of domestic expenses came up, and I was like, I'll never let myself get there again.
Okay.
I'll either lessen the extent of the grant, so I am actually within budget, even though that kills me to have to do that, because you're like, yes, I want as much progress in the farm as anyone else, but yeah, we do have our economic stability to think about as well. But
sure.
Hopefully that's a clear enough picture, like of how we jive with grants.
Cool.
Are there any particular programs that have been that you've like relied on consistently?
Yeah, MANA's Farm to Food Bank Infrastructure Grant. I think we've gotten 4 years worth.
Wow.
Starting from a walk-behind tractor to grow room setup, like lights and farm tools. Barn was another one, and now the cold room in the barn. So it's been really nice, staggered out over time. The 3-year Maryland Healthy Soils Grant, even though it was just one single grant, it was over that time with payments each year, beginning and end, and that's been really awesome as well, because that encompassed everything from planting out the food forest buffers to converting 2 plots that were pasture into annual bed production.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and also the amendments and starting really high quality soil testing, which I want to keep going on and on and on. It's a way to show whether or not what you're doing to the soil is actually sequestering carbon, which I think is really important.
Which test is that?
That was going to be the Cornell soil tests.
Okay.
And we've done virgin soils, as well as all plots, as well as a test, how would you say, test plots varying the type of amendments we're putting down. And hopefully the before and after are going to show what actually is going to be sequestering carbon, whether it's compost, biochar, or basalt rock dust, or a combination thereof.
Can I ask what your background is and what you did at USDA?
Yeah. Wait, what was the second part of the question?
What your background is, like, academically and professionally, and what your job was at USDA.
Oh, yeah,
like,
sure.
At 21.
Yeah, it's no problem. So, my degree was in biology with a focus in molecular genomics.
Okay.
I really wanted to get the core of science while I had the chance, and I worked in a molecular genomics lab at American Type Culture Collection for 7 years, and that's kind of how we built up the funds to be able, that I could be a farmer. Honestly, it was the buffer that allowed us to buy a property like this, but also allowed me to quit my job at the as a farm manager at the Montessori school during the pandemic, and said, okay, I think I'm ready to be a full-time farmer now.
Cool.
In terms of the USDA, so we were it wasn't a long position, but one of the I guess you could say experiments we were doing, it was prompted by the melon growers on the Eastern Shore. They were finding high levels of ground level ozone, and they thought it was affecting their crops. So we built like little controlled environment greenhouses to be able to pump in different levels of ozone.
Sure.
We're also using like one of their controlled environment chambers to do more tests there. The really, I guess you would say, profound experience I had was with my immediate supervisor walking into one of the offices, and 3 of the PhDs were all sitting in front of a monitor, and they were showing a big red circle going from Providence to Richmond, and it was such a dark feeling in that room, and we were like, what's going on? And they're like, look at the CO2 levels. It was like, I don't know, 200 parts per million, and they were all shaking their head being like, it's never going down. This was in 2001 or something. And so, that knowledge that we need to do something. I need to do something. And this continued effort, that I'm not going to really be able to forget this awareness. And so you do what you can do, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's so many really incredible side effects of living sustainably, or living in a way that's as closer to sustainable as you can be in our civilization. And that's a healthy diet. I mean, a connection to the land. These are mental and physical gaps that I think we are all experiencing.
For sure.
So that was a personal question. I'm so sorry.
Not very.
Personally interesting to me.
Oh, gotcha. I was like, no problem.
We ask everyone just about what kind of production you see coming out of the farm in a given year, in terms of what you're getting to manna.
Sure.
What does that look like?
7,500 pounds last year.
Wow.
And that was just volunteer labor, and towards the end, maybe 40, 50 hours of paid labor.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And has that been pretty steady last few years?
It's been exponential increase. So over maybe 4 years, 200, 700, maybe like 2,000, and then 7,500.
Do you know this year where?
I couldn't tell you,
Sure.
but it's probably more.
Okay.
It's probably more. Now, I don't see that going down, except... I actually don't ever see that going down, because I feel like we're resting. Well, no, it possibly could. We made a last-minute decision to plant out Plot A, which was supposed to be in cover, because we knew, I just knew that the grant finishing the cold room was going to go over, and we had a lot of help that I didn't expect we would have, volunteer help. So it was kind of like a quick spring greens crop that ended up being really productive, and we alternated it with summer squash.
Cool.
So as the greens came out, the squash filled in. Like, the greens went to seed, the squash just filled in. And it was and we also had cover crops worked in, pollinators like buckwheat and things like that.
Cool.
But that should have gone into summer cover. That
Okay.
should have been rested. So something I love to share is the indigenous people, their growing practices were like, if the village was at the center and what surrounded them, the land surrounding them, was a pizza pie, they would have 7 slices of pizza, and they would only work 1 slice every 7 years. And of course, the weeds would grow up and they would slash and burn. But 7 years rest. Can we speed that up legitimately with cover crops and compost? And where are we getting that compost? Where are those cover crops coming from?
Right.
So that's why I always look at what is sustainable farming. Can it exist?
I mean, everything you've said, shifting gears a little, leads into this next question. So, but in case there's anything you want to add, what drew you to apply to the Climate Smart Ag program? Anything that we've missed so far? I mean, it seems a little silly to ask with
No, it's okay.
the preceding conversation.
Yeah, it's like so. What can I add to the climate?
Yeah, just how, it sounds like you've been pretty active in getting grants. And this one in particular, I guess like the follow-up that we're going to get to anyway is what kind of other projects are you prioritizing? So beyond what you've started now,
absolutely.
how did you come up with that idea? And then why was that a top priority? And then what are your next 3 on the horizon?
Right. So this was the hardest grant I've ever applied to, not because it was hard to apply and hard to make the design, but it was hard it's always been hard to know how much mitigation is going to be completely negated by environmental factors that we cannot predict. So, for example, it stops raining. Okay? So, I just wasted a lot of your money. And the aquifer gets depleted because it's no longer raining. And so I have friends who are climate advisors for the State Department, and that are deep adaptation is almost like giving up, just becoming aware of it. But what I mean to say is long-term adaptation. What is that going to look like? Mm-hmm. So what I've concluded, I've been thinking about this a lot. This is great that you guys came out here to force me to think about it. What I've been thinking is that the most resilient ecosystem in any place at all is the wild one. Resilient meaning not depending on Western civilization's infrastructure, which is most likely going to be in the most jeopardy should environmental factors start upsetting that norm. That's what I think. Mm-hmm. So if that is going to be what we call the last sustainable environment, then if we're not preparing for that to become our food source, then we're not really combating the climate crisis. Mm-hmm. And how do we do that? I might say this word wrong, re-indigenizing our forests, or transitioning cropland to indigenously inspired forest land. Mm-hmm. There is a huge difference between what you will walk through as Seneca Creek and what you will walk through as the Senecas Creek. Does that make sense?
Sure.
The Haudenosaunee, right?
Right.
Yeah. So looking at rewilding in a last resort agricultural lens.
Mm-hmm.
Which is your agricultural lens?
How I'm seeing is where things need to go for like the Haudenosaunee. You go into a powwow, And you are not thinking about your grandparents, you're not thinking about your children, you are making every decision based on 7 generations down the road. And that takes a whole lot of forethought. And so I think that's, like what I just said, that's where I think we need to go. Because I work for the USDA NASDA, it's a survey group for a part-time job. I was surveying many Montgomery County farmers and going out to their fields and looking at their maps, like the people who are growing thousands of acres of corn, wheat, and soy rotation, and talking to them. And what I noticed on those maps is these farms have forest buffers, right? And then there are edges. And if we can somehow, like I said, re-indigenize no one wants to lose money on a smaller crop unless people like Greenbank say, we're gonna subsidize your loss of income from your wheat commodity products by investing in re-indigenized forest space.
That's pretty cool. What's the first rewilding step? Like, what's next?
The money.
To deepen the money.
The money, but then the people and the ones, finding the ones that do buy in, that will have the greatest, because of their land, either land ownership or their influence upon the land owners, meaning the people who are doing the planting. The people who are doing it's really the owners that are going to make the decision about their forest. So, but the influence of the people who've been doing their corn planting is also weighs into it. So you've got the planter person,
right,
and then you've got the owners. There are not very many massive landowners in Montgomery County, from what I understand. So if you focus on the people who can make the greatest impact, right?
Those
with the
landowners?
least, with the least amount of public resistance. So, like, if it was up to me, take every soccer field and re-inject all that competitive spirit into competitive food production. But that's not going to fly. So, go to the people who have the capacity to make the greatest change with the least amount of public resistance.
I always pick on the golf courses, but that's interesting. Soccer fields.
It's just golf courses. Yes, like the one I kayak out into the Trump every weekend at the, Seneca Creek feeds Riley's Lock, which opens up to the Trump golf course.
I did not know that.
And half the time, one weekend we couldn't pass the Maryland-Virginia state line and had to keep moving because somebody important was there.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
I wonder who.
Yeah.
Trafficking, right. So anyway, there might be other things, but when I wrapped it all up, there are definitely other things here on a very small scale. But if you're skipping all that, skipping this individual, small, not really common setup,
sure,
right?
but
Can we not skip it?
what are they? Yeah, what are the small scale steps that you want to take next?
it would. I'm really leaning toward like if things became very, very tight in terms of resources, I would definitely want to have and I'm sure this exists somewhere, probably out in like the like Australia or places where water's so scarce.
Sure.
But almost like a sacrificial crop to allow for another crop to make it through the season. And I
Can you explain?
I don't even quite know. I haven't, like I said, I've been my research on this is slim, but I feel as though things in nature work mutualistically, right? So if we set up this is all very theory. I can't give you a species on this, and I can't give you a mode of operandi. But I can say that if you create a mutualistic relationship between one living entity that can acquire water and one living entity that can provide for us, we've now just closed this survival loop. And that's very, very ephemeral, but that's how nature does it, right? And then what do we give back as mammals? Our waste, which is the beautiful cycle, right? We fertilize the botanical world. And I feel like we have co-evolved in that way. We spread their seed, right?
Right.
And we receive the gifts of shelter and clothing and food, and then we give the gifts. And so to reestablish a relationship under the dire circumstances that we're going to have. So yeah, it's a unique and it's incredibly unique situation.
On the kind of like business decision side of things, how do you go about when you identify whether it was an example like that or something totally different? How do you think about making that decision? Is it, I need the return on the investment to come within months, years? How long are we looking at?
Yeah.
And then the follow-up will be more thinking about beyond grants. Do you go into the loan world? What kind of options are interesting?
I'm really hyper-focused on sustainability and subsistence living. Our economic survival is my husband's income.
Okay.
So almost everything that I do here has to balance itself for that we are not losing money. So I am not a traditional, I could be a nonprofit, in a way. I just don't want to deal with a board. But I'm not about... the profit just goes back into creating the model that I've envisioned up here, or that I hope we can create. So I'm probably not the best in terms of like looking at the end profit. But here's what I like to say. I'm not living in a fantasy world where we don't have to pay the bills, because what I'm trying to say is that like if you don't have security in your product that you're selling, you're kind of screwed, right? So by focusing now, when I know, okay, yes, I can easily sell right now, but at one point I will not be able to easily sell. So I'm trying to be as forward thinking as possible.
Okay.
So I am putting it into a long-term sustainability plan.
Okay.
And that's what I'm thinking about, because I know, I'm very intimately aware that at any point in time right now, we could be experiencing like a serious crop failure on somewhere on our planet that directly affects our food source. Yeah, I'm fully aware of that.
Sorry, I thought in terms of, so if you went, I think, I just was going to do the follow-up part about the types of like financial mechanisms that might be of interest. So beyond, like when this program continues, it won't just be a grant program, because that is not sustainable on the bank side.
Yeah,
So like how, what flavor of financial mechanism is of interest, or could you see being useful for the types of projects here as well, and that you prioritize from a climate perspective, but also that are palatable from a, in terms of submarket rate, or like money comes in real quick for a bridge until we get this grant funding, or whatever, like what are the options that are enticing versus the ones that are duds?
Yeah,
I can read you a menu.
Yeah,
we have
I
a
was
menu.
just
Want,
about to ask, and let me
You got
scoot
it?
in the shade for a second. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been slowly creeping across here. I was wondering how it's
So
going.
thinking about a menu, we're developing it now, right? So it depends on what you all answer with. So dream big.
Yeah.
If you want to get paid to do nothing, like tell us that. We're thinking about like maybe like a short-term bridge loan. So for example, you get some sort of MANA grant to do that investment. Would you need a bridge loan before that money comes in, just to make sure that you're able to actually start that on time, so you don't have timeline issues? If you're thinking about a loan, does a market interest rate, is that fine, or does that make it totally unaffordable? And you really need to make sure that you're like below market significantly because of the risk of farming and like having some sort of failure. Like, do you need a low interest rate? So you have the bridge, the low interest rate, maybe like a really patient capital, so only interest payments, right? So like, let's say you're doing some sort of soil investment. Soil investment might not make a huge profit change for you in the very first season, your very first harvest, but maybe in 3 years you can see like that shoot up. So would you want to do only interest payments for 2 years, and then you can do bigger capital payments at the end? Also, so those are all like financing mechanisms that might be of interest. And then separately from that, like, would you want it to come with technical assistance? Like, you get our loan, but when you get our loan, we set you up with a meeting with someone who does this professionally, and they'll let you know, like, actually, like, I love your idea with the swells, but it might be better if X. Or, you can do the high tunnel, but we're only going to fund it if you use our contractor, because we know this guy, he's great, we rely on him, and he does sustainable stuff. Like, so of those types of financing, what type of finance works for you? And then also with the resources that, or the strings attached, what strings would make it easier?
Yeah. I'm trying to think on that because so much of ours does come from grants, so much of our income. But in terms of like, I like the idea of that initial startup where you get the funds, but maybe before the grant comes in. Or like, let's say we wanted to start a nursery. There would be an initial output to buy, to set up a tree nursery.
It's a large capital.
Yeah.
Right.
There you go. As you can see, accounting is not in my vocabulary. But I wanted to talk about one thing where a farmer, I think it was Joel Salatin. Okay. Years ago, I would buy his food and he delivered himself way long ago. And at some point, him and his family got together and they said, can everyone put in this amount and support us? How I've mentioned, infrastructure brings us to the next level, right? And asked for that, right? From the community around them. So, and I don't know if he was saying he wanted interest, but I know that's how banks make their money, right? It's on interest. But if you can translate the interest payments into something that is just I don't know, pull interest, be creative about where you could pull interest payments from that wouldn't so much be from the farmer.
Okay.
That's how to pull money out of thin air. But you know what I'm saying? It's there is community supported agriculture, right?
Yeah. A lot of the farmers we talk to do CSA model.
Right. So what if you did CSA, but skip the food element, just community supported, but supporting who? The farmer. So for example, this farmer has interest payments, right? If people know that they buy from a farm, right? I mean, this is less me because like I say, we're selling all through the food bank,
right.
But people who are doing CSAs, what if they're not getting food, but they want this farm to be around because they visit this farm and they want a farm down the street from them. So tapping into the community to say, hey, would you guys contribute to this farm by covering this amount of this interest? And then it becomes this package of community, bank, and farmer. And like I said, I'm clueless about accounting, but I feel if you're talking green bank and you're talking farmers, bring community in, because if people aren't made aware of the asset by having local farms, they need to be made aware of that. And by saying, hey, help fund this because we want this farm to stay alive.
Farming is a public good.
Thank you.
It's a public service.
Yes, thank you, especially in this day and age. And let's call it as it is, green farming, right? Farming sustainable. I'm hesitant to use the word farming, I don't know, low carbon. I'm hesitant to use the word sustainable, and I know Green Bank does, but it's no, we have to really look at what is sustainable. But do you know what I mean? Low impact, low carbon farming. And I know my friend Tom Farquhar, he's I don't even use the word organic. It's been so bastardized. But anyway, so that is a model. I feel it truly is a grant for the farmer. Honestly, I personally don't like interest. I don't like loans. I don't want that pressure on me. If I get hurt, honestly, production and income drops drastically. So I personally do not feel comfortable getting a loan. I'll be straight honest with you on that. Yeah. Because it is not a regular paycheck. It stops seasonally,
right.
And it stops if something comes up. It's a family-run farm. There is variable in that equation.
I'm not trying to push a loan on someone who doesn't want it, but you're talking about seasonality. Do you think a loan that had seasonal payback would make sense?
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Let's say we give you X amount of money.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay it for the winter because we know that you're not harvesting. But then once March comes, then maybe we're starting. Would that make a difference?
Absolutely, absolutely. When your repayment options match your income options, yes, that's to me a no-brainer. Because people, you just follow manna and you follow the markets and you can see where people's income. We're all, the farmers and I, all literally retire every year. We are so wiped out by it now that we're it's an over-the-top expenditure of energy, mental and physical. So it's understanding that the culture is really important and matching the financing to it.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. Is there So I know that you aren't comfortable with loans, but is there like what's the smallest amount of capital that you think would make a difference investment wise on your farm? If you're like, man, I really want to seed this forest buffer, but it's not worth doing the paperwork or doing the data collection unless I get 2,000. Or unless I get $1,000, or unless I get $5. Like, what is that number for your operation?
That's kind of is between 1 and 3,000. Okay. That could get a small-ish project that I could support with the labor I have. And I'm trying to see. So remember how I said I went over on a couple, and I got in that bad situation? Then that would be when I would be like, oh, I absolutely need a loan.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
just to stabilize.
Grant. It was just a window. The car died. The tuition payments came up, and it was like, oh. So quick loans to carry you through over expenditures for infrastructure or over expenditures on grant budgets.
So you would like prefer a loan, like if you could get the loan in like 2 weeks, but then you had like more paperwork to do in 6 months, that would be preferable than like 6 months of paperwork and then like a bigger payout or something.
Absolutely, because you don't expect a lot of times, and I mean, I should know the funds, but everything from an extra 1,000 on the concrete pour because outside of anyone's control and anyone's expectation. It's just how it worked out. The level of the floor, the shift of this, the insulation thing. I mean, so many factors go into changing. They say always give a window. Well, in farming, it's like that window has to be much broader. Yeah. It's not just this cookie cutter anything. So I would say yes on that.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, do you have anything that comes to mind specifically when you think about like financing that like is like an impediment to your implementation of sustainable farming practices? Like I know that's really your bread and butter. Like that is the goal of this operation and like this is your passion to make sure. But is there something about the money that makes that hard to do? Like a barrier?
But when you put a lot of time and energy into one grant and you don't get it, that's a big thing. And you don't, multiple grants were canceled because of the political temperature. Oh my gosh. It was like, that was really ridiculous this spring, whereas the spring before, it was like night and day in terms of what we were getting as a farm. There's always a big manpower. I've talked to MoCo Food Council about this. There's always this dearth of like good quality help, right, in farming. So what if, and I've pushed this, but like Green Bank is getting into the corporate world, right? But like I feel like if bye non-native. If the corporate world could put their, I don't know, like maybe volunteer hours into eliminating the greatest stress of the farmer, which is making sure we have enough help, then I think you would be maybe in a way opening us up to a greater acceptance, to a greater ability to get more financing. So do you know what I'm saying? So like use your tools that you can to help the farmer in the area they're most struggling, and then they might be able to come back.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Okay.
What about on the kind of consultant side of things, folks to help you think through? Is that something you're interested in? Do you already have kind of a network for that, or?
Sort of, like the Cornell soil science head, he's helping me on some things, and I have just friends and people at past coworkers. I think on my scale, because the plan has been, I've had the plan for such a long time, and I'm a permaculture designer, that I personally, I could get advice or like someone to look over what I've already made, but it's way more important for the commercial ag farmers who have been doing status quo, commodity Roundup Ready crops that are willing to transition to a greener alternative that would really need some high quality consultants. So I would say me, not so much, but absolutely other people that don't have any plan for any kind of change at all, and they don't know where to start. I mean, that's terrible to say. Oh, I don't need anyone's help. But I mean, obviously there are people out there that can look over what I'm doing and give tips. But I feel like I'm comfortable where we're going, and it's like it's always ongoing and changing.
Yeah.
So when someone comes in and they give a static, it's probably going to be expired, and they'd have to revisit it every year because things are changing so drastically. Always, all the time. It's very, very dynamic here because it's so small, and we can do things, make changes a lot without having a huge investment.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Sure.
Yeah, we're a little bit more different, like I said, a little more unique, but I would say yes, absolutely. To have someone, especially regenerative designers.
Right. Who also has it in their tool belt, the kind of the finance like options.
Yes.
That's what we're thinking about a bit.
Absolutely. And then, I mean, if Montgomery County, what's their, okay, Office of Food Resilience.
Office of Food System Resilience.
Thank you.
Office of Food
OF.
System Security and Resilience.
Food
OFSR.
OFSR. How tied in is OFSR with the Green Bank?
Yeah, so I'm a reviewer for most of their grants.
Okay, great. So
yeah, we work with them.
Great. So, like, if their grants can tie in to your financing, right? And then the output becomes, like, say, you know, a discount, right? It's basically a discount of a project. And almost like a cost share. You're aware of this?
Right.
Yeah. So think of it like the cost share. You've got your farmer, right? You've got your OFSR and you guys. And OFSR, they want food security. The farmer wants to make as much as they made last year or more.
Right.
And you guys want to be able to make interest off your loans, right? So use these guys to start the project here, and the extra comes back to you. And maybe it's not as much as you would if you just did a straight loan, but look at the green. The green. You've got the green aspect in there. Do you know what I mean?
No, I do.
Yeah, so that would be this beautiful triangle that could work on these bigger scales of, like I said, re-indigenizing their woods, or creating buffers between their commodity crops, and let those buffers be the food security.
Right.
Yeah.
Let them be, like, these are American chestnuts from Badgerset, from down 100 seeds, 3 years later down to 18, but those are some hardy American chestnuts. They're going in the ground in West Virginia in a week, or in 2 weeks.
Sweet.
But what I'm saying is that you can, I think with you guys, you can be this party in here that makes it doable. And then these guys, of course, are the main funders, right? I think they have the budget to start these projects. I mean, I was looking at some of the, I forget, Catherine sent out. Is it Catherine?
Yeah,
Nardi?
Catherine Nardi.
Yeah, she's amazing. Yeah, she sent out some information. I was like, wow, there's funds. There are funds,
Yeah.
right? So put them where they can make the most difference. And once you see one farmer doing it, and he's like, oh yeah, I love it. I'm getting this and this and this benefits.
Would you be into, like, I don't know, like a quarterly newsletter of, like, financing options that exist in Montgomery County for farmers, or like biannual during the slow season, like farmer get together, like knowledge share situation?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's really valuable. That's something nobody really wants to talk about, the bottom scale money thing, right? Like, how are we going to, because we're all at different levels of investments and sizes and practices. I mean, there is nothing more diverse than farming.
I know.
You go from one end to the other.
sure.
We've been visiting
In this
it.
county, yeah, for
Oh
sure.
my gosh,
I
you're
can't believe
seeing it.
Yeah.
15 different farms, all
Yeah.
combating climate change and where they fall.
Right.
Right?
And then you have the fluency with the financial side, like that overlays, and it isn't just as diverse. So that's been interesting.
Do you have any questions for us? Or
Yeah, I
for
feel like we've
reflections
exhausted
about-
our questions, right?
Okay.
Yeah, like you were part of this grant program, like things that were good, things that were bad,
yeah,
questions.
Yeah, I would say, well, first of all, do you guys plan to do a second round?
So the Green Bank doesn't really do grants. That's like not
Oh.
really something that the Green Bank does.
Yeah.
But we are hoping to use the data from these interviews and from a survey we're sending out to create a long-term financing tool. So if we find out that talking to farmers, everyone's like, you know what, yeah, I could really use those emergency 2-week approval loans, then we're going to see if we can set up an emergency 2-week approval program that comes with some some technical assistance, and then we make sure that exists for as long as we exist, right? Or, you know, if you guys say, you know what, we don't really need any financing, but we would love you guys to, like, finance and pay us to go to a knowledge share conference in January every year, then, like, maybe that's will be what we do, right? So, like, we're not planning on doing grants again unless it's more of like a data collection thing for us.
Sure.
But we are,
great.
the goal of this
Yeah.
explicitly is to create a long-term financing goal.
Gotcha. And then I asked this at the Farmer Forum in February, I believe, and I actually met a representative from the Green Bank. I forgot what her name is.
Lauda?
Sorry?
Claudia?
Yes.
Lauda, Claudia, Brianna.
Claudia.
Claudia. Okay.
I think it was Claudia. Anyway, she attended. So what I really want to try to I was suggesting to the council members as well as to the Green Bank representative was that why can't we start working carbon credits into all of our farming practices? And maybe it doesn't have to be official carbon credits because that's really hard to gauge. But maybe it could be regenerative farming credits. Like how many practices on how much land, or no, even better, this is much more appropriate, how much produce are coming out of your practices, right? And that's the gauge for credits. So, I mean, you know, we do with the Forest Carbon Council, right? I don't understand the finances behind that, but I feel like if there's some kind of tax break that you guys can obtain through our work, I don't know. Like I said, income, I don't know how it works. But I asked and nobody really had a clue. And I was like, climate, carbon, credits, I feel like they're synonymous and why aren't we talking about them?
Right.
Yeah.
But like I said, the financial side, I don't know. I don't know how. I really don't. They trade on some kind of market, the forest carbon, they trade on some kind of market. Because, again, commercial, big biz has to buy X number of carbon credits.
Right.
There you go. And you buy them from us and sell them to them. And you can make profit on that. Yeah. So tap into the people who really have the money and then take a cut and then translate that to the farmer to keep doing what they can do.
Yeah. Just one last question. Can you tell me for this specific operation right here in the next 3 years, what are your top 3 priorities of investments you would want to make, practices you would want to start?
I would say we're finishing off our food forest buffer grant cycle. So one of our projects is to basically plant out or finish all of our food forest buffers. In terms of investments, it's probably going to be on the barn.
Yeah. Because
that's where we're going to start our hub and our classes. I'm going to transition more to teaching classes, so I need a place to do that with. Cool. And so finishing the barn. That's the roof, the insulation. What you saw, those 2 rooms, the rest of it. None of it was done. That's all pretty much raw. So that is over the next 3 years. And I actually have on my to-do list, I've just gotten approval through the county because I always ask first because my neighbors will make sure everything's absolutely legit. So we plan to get shipping containers to transition all the farm over to pretty much that side, that corner of the property. And that will allow any volunteer, anyone coming in to food hub people who are kind of using us as consignment sales almost to have a centralized space for all the processing, growing, and learning that happens.
Cool.
So that includes, storage.
Where are those going to go?
Well, so I didn't take you on that, but on this side, there's a good, 50-foot wide strip between the high tunnel and the edge of our property.
Oh, great.
And I just mapped it out. It's totally 15 feet off a setback, and that would be like a 40-foot, a 20-foot shipping container, doors, and of course, maybe potential grow room in there if we wanted to, because ours is in our current basement right now.
Okay.
So things like that, that's all in my bandwidth. It's trying to get it done this year. Obviously, it probably won't happen, but at least partial transition over.
Cool.
And then eventual full transition over. That's gonna be chicken of the woods.
Sweet.
Yeah. So that's kind of exciting, and I'm
that's awesome.
Sometimes I have to sit there and be like, I have to wait for the next grant, but I have no idea. You were asking about interest rates, right? Mm-hmm. So when you say market rate, I don't actually understand what that means.
So if you go to a traditional bank, like a Sandy Spring Bank or Bank of America, when they give you a loan, they do that calculation based off of your financial history, and they'll give you a semi-standard rate based on that, right? The Green Bank, when we do those same calculations, we are more generous and we give you a lower interest rate based on if you're in a low-income disadvantaged community, or if your practices are particularly sustainable, or if it's, meeting another one of our criteria that is mission-oriented, right? So let's say you got a loan to pour concrete, and that was a $5,000 loan at a 7% interest rate. If the pouring of the concrete we thought made sense with our mission and everything, and your finances checked out, we could, this is just me spitballing, I'm not the underwriter.
Yeah.
We could give you like a $5,000 loan for your concrete, but instead of a 7% interest rate, we give you a 2.5.
Significantly less.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So-
see, I could, if I knew more about it and had definitive numbers, I'm saying this, I would never take a loan, but I mean, that project's there, and I'm like, okay, I could really be doing stuff right now. If I'm teaching classes and it's like $500, for this 5-weekend class per person, then it absolutely makes sense to hurry up and get that done.
Right.
And that's actually kind of my, priority right now.
Yeah.
Now that I have. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of was like, no, I can't even go there. But obviously, yeah, it's possible. I just don't know too much about, I get worried. I do get worried about getting in a situation that
for sure.
it has to be within budget. But every year, it seems like we have more and more in the chicken of the woods savings bank. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is nice.
Sweet.
It's a really
Yeah.
great,
That's good.
the buffer is increasing, and that's thanks to things like what you did, and because I can't stay stagnant, so I'm going to keep seeking the grants. But I know absolutely there's probably no way I'm going to get a grant for a new roof on the barn. It's just not in the
Sure.
the cold rooms are, the solar powered pumps and the wells, yes, that's all tied in, but certain things you're going to have to pay out of pocket.
Right.
But I'm just going to keep
No, this is
spinning
awesome.
and thinking about other things, but I'd love to actually, I was wanting this conversation way back in February, so I'm so glad. I didn't realize we'd actually, because you were like,
Yeah, yeah.
maybe someone from the Green Bank is coming, maybe
Yeah.
not.
You'll get
I
my
confirm
contact
with you, and then I
Yeah,
confirm with
okay,
Esther.
cool. That's great. No,